Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is your Sensei Al Bob here to tell you a story as your griot. And it was really chilly over the Christmas. The coldest it got was minus 60 degrees below freezing. Freezing on Fahrenheit is 32, and then it got to zero, and then it went down another 30 degrees, right? So that was 62 degrees below the freezing of water, right? So all my water lines froze, all my, it was a little difficult. Luckily, the electricity didn't go out. I would have been dead because the thing that kept me alive was I was wrapped up in my basic electric blanket. But my hippie wagon, I had, you know, there was some tweakers living with a Floridian. He was basically using them slaves. And, he was, wearing his white outfit and drinking a mint julep from days long gone. And, um, and then he went off to Florida, right, for about 3 weeks with his family. And about a week or so before Christmas, when it was still in the 60s, and he pushed them out of his military compound, and basically there were these folk there with nothing to do, So basically, uh, Colonel Beauregard, that is a Floridian. That's my new name for Colonel Beauregard. Is basically a slave holder of and they're slaves in America. Um, they're called homeless people, right? And there's slaves in America called your supermarket cashier or anyone in working at McDonald's. Now that now McDonald's Corporation is forced to pay those folks $16 to $26, and all that is being pushed into that's what the corporations are making tremendous amounts of profit um, off the backs of everyone in America, right? Here we are, the richest country in the world, and 40% of all the children um, in the United States go to bed hungry, right? Um, a good percentage of the I mean, I'm a guy in my 70s. I have to deal, I have, no savings whatsoever. I live on my Social Security. And this is a good time to say, hey, send something to my PayPal, please. And thank you for all those who have. It's still working. My phone is, I'm half blind and I can't really see too well. And I live out in the middle of the woods where I get no anything. I got to drive. The closest from me is a mile away, my neighbor. And, I that's where, I'm kind of up above him because he's got somebody staying there. And I found another sweet spot for the Wi-Fi. And so anyway, but all of these things that I experience, I could, so the tweakers I put into the uh, what you call it, a hippie um, van, and because it had a wood stove, so they could stay warm. And if it got too cold, I would go in there with them. But within, like I said, Colonel Beauregard is buying the hippie motif for a lawn ornament at his glamping establishment, the Tweakers Glamping Land, and that's over in Tweakerville. And because all this area, I met a guy Monday, I guess, and he was looking at properties. He's, um, this is the time actually to buy stuff, right? if you can find the right thing. And I'm probably the guy you could, you know. So I live in this garden paradise that is dying, right? And I have to be. I was blessed 18 years of really having a natural, a preserve. I was in this community thing that went bankrupt, and there's nobody here for 18 years, and out in the middle of the forest, and it's beautiful, right? And I thought 18 years has a pretty long time because there are many different inroads of the whatchamacallits. Yeah. I don't know what social nickname I could give the Californians, the Floridians, the New Jerseyans, the Texans that are all running away from their. Well, Texas is a great country where everybody can carry a gun, until they all coming up here. And the real thing about this neck of the woods is, yeah, it's beautiful. It's top in the mountains. But there's a road. They call it No Water Road, right? You'd think, okay, that's called No Water Road for a reason. And some, mobsters laundering their money bought up 1,000 acres of that part of the lake, put a little, marina, and then sliced that whole mountain up into, um, you know, I don't know, 2 or 300 lots that they charged 100 grand a piece. There's no water, never will be. There is no septic, never will be, and there is no electric, never will be. And there are no, there is no codes of any kind, right? And that's Tennessee. Anybody a 6-month-old can carry a gun. Now that's the euphemistic view of that the coastals have of folks like this. As Hillary Clinton said, a basket of deplorables who just love their guns and their religion. Well, that's not true. These holler folk aren't a monolith. They're all different. And this Monday, this guy was looking around for properties, and he's had a good job, he has a good retirement, he has saved his money, and he's buying up little things here and there because he seen that, okay. So people don't think that's it worth anything. Oh, right. So he came and he's looking around here, and he was a guy who went back like 20 generations. He was like here before his skin was here before the Indians, right? Not really, but anyway, he sat down on my deck and we were talking, and I gave him something to eat. And, I showed him, what I had on the bubble because I always have something cooking, because I have no refrigeration. So you got to cook what you got. And I keep it warm and I heat it up. I got my crock pot and it's always like got it at a warmness and I can hit it on super high and it'll get it, you know, warmer than warm to eat, right? And so I had a really nice venison potato stew, right? Anyway, so I gave him a cup of that, and he said, "Wow, this is amazing." I said, "Yep, I'm a pretty good cook." And I gave him a bottle of water because I could see he needed water, so I gave him that. So we sat and talked, and he talked for 2 hours about the history of around here, all the different families and people, and who he's related to, and these people over here, and these people over there, and when this happened, and when that happened. And I just listened because he was a fund of information. And every so often, I'd ask a question or make an insight, and we had a great conversation for 2 hours. And then it was kind of getting towards um, it was going to rain. And so I said, well, it's going to rain in about 20 minutes, half an hour. I got a few things to get in before the rain starts, and you got to get back home before the rain starts. He goes, yep, yep. And I said, so tell me, after everything we've talked about, and he basically made the inference about how the holler folk is basically the canary in the coal mine, right? I said when I was going to school, meaning college, and getting a like a well-paying job, He had to leave here to do that, because they used to have well-paying jobs here. This whole area was high tech. This was before, you know, Silicon Valley. Everything from Oak Ridge into up to uh, Blacksburg was the high tech manufacturing. Sperry was here, Univac was here, GE was here, um, all the chemical companies were here, and that's why they put Oak Ridge there, right? And TVA had built a bunch of dams, so there was a lot of hydropower and a lot of power because the industry needs water, right? Not just electricity, but water. So, from basically World War, well, yeah, basically, well, really, since since the Civil War, let's say, all the way through, until the 70s, this was, there's factories everywhere, right? And there's trees growing through them. It's a lot like Detroit. But what's really interesting, this whole swath was Yankee, was blue, right? Was the Union. Who knew? Anyway, so I asked him, so okay, we've had all this conversation, and he goes, people say you talk a lot, but man, you are a good listener. I got all these stories, and people are tired of hearing me talk about it. But I said, buddy, come here anytime. You can tell me these same stories over and over again. This is what I'm interested in. And so I said, but I have a question to ask you. And he goes, what's that? And I said, well, all the things we talked about, right? And we illuminated many social and cultural dynamics. And he's like, right with me. What? Tell me what's the one thing that's lacking that would fix the problems we have enumerated, and you know, um, what is the action we need to take? Right? What's lacking, and what's the action we need to take? Right? He goes, I love the way you talk. All those words. I know what they mean. I just don't hear them that much, like enumerated, right? And he was like, "What's that?" Whereas, Colonel Beauregard, I talk after, and what was that word mean? I'm smart. What's that word mean? So this guy goes, he thinks, and he goes, I can say it in one word. And what's that? He goes, empathy. And he goes, I go, wow, empathy. Yes. That is. That's the one word. And the one word that's lacking from our society. You look at the morons who can't even pick. They win the Congress, the House, and they can't even pick their leader, right? There's a tradition of 125 years. That's why, the leader is a no-brainer, for 125 years. Oh, yeah, I don't like this guy, but still, he stands to be our leader, right? So Kevin is guy who's done all the right jobs. He's done all the things. He's led the Republicans when the Democrats were in charge, when Nancy was there, and those 20 morons don't want to vote for him, right? So that's very obviously they're kind of being paid off, right? Either they're financially or ideologically, right? And so if the Republicans can't even pick a leader, right? And I've been saying, and I have been saying for the last few months, since JoJo was, um, basically elected, and I said, in 2 years, the downside ballots, the Republicans will have a big win, but not as big as they're touting. Not some red wave, no, not because it was the vote was stolen, no. But they'll have advantage because that's how it always goes, right? So, and the other thing that most people don't realize that the United States has been a multi-plural country, meaning it wasn't a bicameral. It wasn't just Democrats and Republicans. We had socialists, we had communists, we had a workers' party, we had the Union Party, we had the Black part, we had about 18 parties, right? Plus the Democrats and Republicans, right? And there used to be Whigs and something else. And so, bottom line is, in that period between Reconstruction and 1970, basically, there were enough other uh, folk getting voted in. I mean, there were communists as socialists and as they were congressmen and senators and governors and state legislators, right? Huey Long's a good example, right? So, um, but I mean, that's why we had the Red Scare in the 50s because the Democrats and Republicans said it's just going to be, it's just us, no more justice, it's just us, right? And so they basically took about 20 years to get rid of all the other political entities. And Jim Crow was the way they got rid of the black political structure. But the black folk were so, you know, well adjusted to navigate whatever was thrown at them. And so when Jim Crow came around, they used it to focus their political and economic strength to the point where YLBG, Lyndon Baines Johnson, president, passed the 1965 Voting Act and a few other civil rights acts. He knew they would make no difference. But he went to all the blue dogs down in the South, who are now Republicans, and said, hey, listen, you don't eat at the counter, you don't ride the bus, you hate the white poor people, and you basically have the black people in your families taking care of everybody. So they are the seventh largest economy in the world. In 1962, the World Bank said, black, segregated economy was the seventh largest economy in the world because, still Americans still have pretty good jobs, still make more money than most, and they put all their money together and they had this, all the black people had to shop at black stores and black this and black that. And that one black guy who was a really good businessman, he couldn't have one big store because if in that little town, his store was doing, even though it was only selling to black people, was doing better than a white store, they'd kill him. I mean, that was pretty much a standard operating procedure. So that guy, so you see the Dollar General stores that came from a lot of black businessmen back in the day had lots of like the Green Book. Those things were done by, the first female millionaire in America was a black woman. I mean, this is all history. So they destroyed the black economy. Good old Mr. Robert Moses put highways right through. You go to every major city, from, not even major, any city above 70,000 that there was going to be an interstate nearby, they would put the bypass right through the this black neighborhood, and the Brooklyn Queens Expressway is a great. It's like a snake. Instead of going in one line, it does this and goes through every neighborhood they wanted to destroy, so they could redline it and then buy it for nothing, and then 20 years later build condos and put rich people there. So, and the highway would be just right there for them. So in California, LA, LA is a great example of that, right? California had one of the best mass transit systems in the world up until after World War II, and they destroyed it, right? And the hybrid car, the LA had streetcars that ran on that wire up in the air, but as it expanded, that streetcar, what they did was they made streetcars that were hybrids. So it had a little diesel motor to make electricity to run the electric motors that pushed the streetcar once the wire wasn't there because the infrastructure wasn't keeping up with the folk, right? So from the 30s until the 60s, later 60s, they had streetcars everywhere. And when I was a little kid, My grandma's house. She had a house in a place called Freeport, and another thing in Harlem. And we would take the streetcar. We could take the Long Island Railroad, which would be real fast, zing, right? Get all the businessmen into New York in like 15, 20 minutes from Freeport. You took the express, but that cost 75 cents. But we could get on the trolley for a nickel and go along. And we could get off. They give you a little ticket. You could get off anywhere. There were a couple of restaurants she liked. There was a carnival amusement park that we would stop off and ride. She liked roller coasters, and so we would do stuff like that. And that was into the 60s. Right? They ripped it out of the ground in, I don't know, 62 or no, maybe 60, 59, 60. And they put all the Long Island Railroad trains up, so there weren't any crossings, right? And so anyway, all of these things aren't just, oh, we're just going to do this. No, everything is pretty much strategically planned out. And we are experiencing, everything, the pandemic's going on all the freaking time, right? It's just how you play it, right? How you relate to it. Right now, with hindsight, they're saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have had all the kids taken out of school, and maybe we shouldn't have done this. And there were, people who were pandemicologists who were saying, no, I mean, we need to protect the most vulnerable, the old people. And we basically hung those guys out to dry. And so the thing is, we are not leading with our best foot, and our best foot is empathy, right? And it doesn't seem like any of you guys are even interested in empathy because there's nobody here, right? But there was, like I said, I'm pitched. The sun is so nice. I'm like sitting here in the sun, and just kind of giving me in the morning. I'm having my coffee with you, right? My morning coffee, and just giving you some thoughts. So I'm gonna come back in an hour or more. I'm gonna run off and do some errands, and then let's see what time it is. How much juice we have left here? Oh, it's 10. Okay. I'll talk for another few minutes and get off. But I'll be back by 11:30 or 12 o'clock, right? And then I'll expect you guys to be there. Let's try. Let's see. Let's see. Call up some people. You usually like it when I call up people. Usually brings an audience. Let's see. Here we go with Miss Fish. See if she answers. Oh, hey, sweetie.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, it's a beautiful day, and I'm live on the show. You're my first guest.
Hi, everybody.
So, what's your view from the perch?
My view?
Yeah. You have a great view. You have a great worldview on your job. You see how the, what do they call it? The supply chain is.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a better view than virtually. I know all these people who are, you got degrees, are supposed to study what you do, and you know it way more than those morons.
Yeah. It's called 25 years worth of doing it.
Yeah, right.
Luckily, the rail didn't strike, which helped a whole lot.
Yep.
There's a lot of the freight was and is tied up at ports.
Right.
Actually, the week of Christmas, I was down at the Port of Savannah. And there, just backed up. Just containers.
So does Savannah only, do they do everything or just cars?
at the port.
Yeah.
They do everything.
Oh, they do everything.
Everything. Those containers
Right.
are
Everything.
yeah. People call I don't we call them containers, but the Connex boxes,
Right.
whatever people want to call them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
That uh-huh.
the other port that's over near Jekyll Island, that's just for cars.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have anything to do with that port?
I have been over there, but no, I don't have any customers that bring their freight in through that port.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my customers on the East Coast bring theirs in through Charlotte or Savannah.
Right. And Charlotte
then, of
would be
course-
mostly air, right? Charlotte's mostly air.
No, they have a port.
They do?
Yeah, they
where-
have an actual port.
Really? Where's that?
Well, it's outside of Charlotte, closer to the water. I can't.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
not in front of my
So it's
computer to look at
so
exactly.
it's
to tell
like
you.
near 20s. Okay, I got it. Because I used to live in Charlotte and the city itself, but where's the port? So yes. So, okay, but that's pretty amazing. How much freight goes through that?
Hundreds and hundreds. I was at a facility after I left the port right before Christmas.
Right.
I was at a facility and they were getting like 50 containers coming in
Right.
a day, where they just unload them, where they'd come off the boat,
Right.
truck them over to the freight
Storage.
forwarder.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were shipping them out just as quick as they could get them unloaded and loaded back onto over-the-road trailers.
Mm-hmm. So
Now, with the rail, like the ports out west,
right.
a lot of their stuff comes off and goes straight onto rail.
Right.
So was the big thing if the rail struck.
Yeah.
They were gonna struck is not the right.
No,
I don't know.
struck is a great grammar word. No, you got it.
Yeah. So if they went on strike, it would have screwed us all up.
Right. That's why it was never going to happen. It was just to get people anxious.
Get people anxious and get those people to let them get some money.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The employees,
Yeah.
not
the businesses. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's that fine line between the corporate structure knows they have to pay their workers enough to keep them doing their job.
Yeah. And see, the unions run all of the rails.
Right.
But with so much theft that happens, I mean, every day they're stealing stuff.
Right.
The rails have, the railway has its own police force.
Right.
So a lot of people don't know that.
Oh yeah.
They've had to triple their rail police. So there's,
So
there's
back in
rail
the day
police.
when things were in boxcars, I could see that, but things that are in those containers, doesn't that make it harder for them to steal stuff?
Well, it depends on how the container is sealed.
Right.
Some have, example, one of my customers, they actually put like a 3-inch diameter padlock on there, and then a wire cable on there, and a bolt seal on there. So you have to have, a crew if you're wanting to do it fast. One to take care to cut the, the lock, the bolt. One to, pull the cable off, and then try to get the doors open, all before somebody notices something.
Right.
But yeah, they do break into those mostly. If you've ever seen on TV, especially out in California, where they show the rails and then there's trash or just empty boxes on the side of the road,
Right.
or on the side of each track, that's what's happened. They don't tend to get them when they're moving, because it's hard to still moving freight. But if they're, packed up,
if they're waiting to move,
it's hard to still moving freight in America.
Right.
It is not hard to still moving freight in other countries.
Right.
South Africa, they literally hunt you down. There was a viral video that went viral, I think last or at the beginning of the summer, where it was two South African guys in a truck being shot at. That really happens. They shoot at them, and of course in Mexico and South America they do the same thing.
Now, who's shooting? The police or the banditos?
The banditos. Actually, one of my customers had a theft over the weekend, and this is how brazen the criminals were. They stole the load from the driver.
Right.
The driver was not in his truck; he had gone in, but they stole the truck and the trailer and took it down the road and unloaded all the freight into a parking lot. And you could see exactly what the freight was. It was all TVs.
Right.
I mean, huge TVs, but a lot of places, your more high-end stuff, your computers,
Right.
your game systems, they will sometimes wrap them in black plastic or put them in bigger brown non-script boxes,
Right.
so you don't know exactly what you're getting.
But these guys
no,
opened it up and it was obviously TVs.
Yeah, because I have pictures. I looked at them on Monday or Tuesday when we came back, and I was like, "What? You people are stupid. Anybody driving down the road can see this." But to steal something in America, it's not considered grand theft auto.
Right.
So you steal a $3 million trailer of freight,
Yep.
you may serve 6 months in jail. You get more for stealing somebody's car.
Right.
So that's a huge problem. But
Now, who makes? Obviously, the bandito makes some money stealing that stuff, right? But on your side, are there people taking advantage? Like in New York City, there was a period where guys who owned real estate would just burn their buildings for the insurance money, and it was a scam. The guy who owned the building would pay everybody off, right?
Yeah, not really. We have not been able to prove that is the case. As far as the actual doing something like that.
Right.
Because like the company that I work for, they actually get insurance breaks for using our services because it's 24-hour real-time monitoring.
Right. So you're a good boardwalk to theft.
Yeah. but we have here in Tennessee a few years back.
Right.
One of my customers, they were shipping stuff to their houses. The people who actually, are creating the shipping labels,
right.
And they were just taking them and putting them on, running them through the whatever,
system, right.
the conveyors, and
right.
they dropped down in UPS or whatever. And they had, by the time it was discovered, they done stole a 53-foot trailer worth of product. In individual boxes, so
yes.
That's a lot. We're not talking about
how long did that take?
We're talking about individual boxes.
Right. How long did that take?
It took them about 6 months.
Holy moly! I mean, that's
to get that much, but like as soon as we figured out. But then where they really messed up was a lot of these places are foreign trade zones.
Right.
So they got more than local authority problems.
Right.
Now they have federal problems.
Right.
So now they have felonies because they were stealing from foreign trade zones.
Right. So if they had done it from just your neighborhood, it wouldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been that bad. It'd have been like, oh, okay.
Right.
Especially out of California, you can steal up to almost $1,000.
Right.
Before they, it's.
Right.
Before they even prosecute you is so stupid, but.
Right. Well,
But China's starting to open up, even though they've got that new variant.
Right.
I think their protest over there, how brave they are.
Right.
I was really worried about those China folks for a minute,
Right.
doing all that protesting, but they've actually eased up, and freight is starting to come out of there.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, Shanghai has finally reopened and is allowing freight to come out. There was like, Shanghai's been closed, and I forget a couple of their other bigger ports. So they were pushing everything out little ports,
Right.
which was clogging up the demand back here
Right.
or anywhere. But since Shanghai's open, stuff's going.
Okay.
But nobody has money to buy it now.
What is the common thread or thought of what would happen if there was a military thing over Taiwan? You guys must be talking about what that would be like.
Yes. We do business in Taiwan too, so.
But I mean, that would make China, and I mean, that would just throw that whole China Sea thing into, all those boats that go through the China Sea, they come to our ports.
Sunk.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And we would be. We would be screwed, pretty much. I mean, as a country.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure individuals or doomsday preppers or, people that live on farms and, how to, wrangle a chicken and pluck feathers and stuff and hunt. I mean, those folks, I guess, would be all right. But the majority of these people that live in these big cities
or suburbs,
they rely
or
on,
even out here, all the people who are running away from California and Texas and
oh yeah, those children will be the first one to die.
Right. Because
the holler people will be the ones that'll live.
Right, exactly. So it's because I'm just observed, when it got really cold here, all the I call them colonels, like there are all these people, like I said, from the usual suspects, California, Florida, Texas, New Jersey, Charlotte, North Carolina, all these people, and they act.
I can't stand Charlotte.
Yes.
So go ahead.
They act like the euphemistic picture of the Southern plantation owner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the Southern plantation owner was never the guy that looked like, Kentucky Fried Chicken. But,
Colonel Sanders, yeah.
Right, Colonel, they were not that. But all these people were coming. That's how they act because they're exceptional. It's all about me. And they treat people like slaves.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
You know what they treat them like slaves, not even like lower class, like slaves. And the Floridian, he brought tweaker guys that, work for him in Florida and put them on his property and put them in pop-ups and didn't pay him, but worked them to death. And then when he saw the cold coming, he got his kids. He went down to his house in Florida and stayed there 3 weeks. And these guys were in the woods. And they were going to freeze to death. So I put them in my hippie wagon and because it has a wood stove in it. And they had no food, so I was feeding them, right? And it'd be one thing if they were semi-appreciative or helped me do stuff, but they didn't. They just sat there and watched me feed them. It was like quite interesting. So.
Yeah, people, even here. So we're closed.
Right.
We're closed here.
Right.
Nobody else can move here. I'm just saying.
Right.
We have so many people from all over, and they bring their stupidness with them. They're like, oh, we're getting out of California because of this or this or whatever.
And all those things that they're going on about, they bring with them.
Yeah, they bring it with them, and then they're so rude and so, hostile and
entitled. They're entitled. Right.
And I'm like, dude, y'all are down here where we do things slower.
Right.
I mean, not like snail pace, but they honk at you.
Right.
People are just so rude on the traffic. I was listening to you tell that story back around Christmas, when you was going up to Virginia
Right.
trying to get to New York, and dude yelling at you from the car,
Right.
and you were trying to pick up the wood, and I was like, get your ass out of the car and help.
Right. Exactly. Here's this old guy
I
who can't
mean,
even.
if you're such in a damn hurry,
Right.
get up, get out of your car. I don't care if it's pouring down rain. Throw some bushes.
Right.
Pick up some logs, throw them over. You don't have to get every one.
Right.
Our cars are going to run over
Right,
little
right.
limbs. That's not going to kill nobody.
Right.
But don't sit there and complain and honk. You know what I'd have done?
Right.
If he honked and done what he had done to you,
Right.
I'd have set my butt right back in the car and just sat there. Just sat there.
Well, I had to go someplace too, so and it was
Yeah.
actually a beautiful day. I mean, it wasn't inclement weather, it wasn't rainy or snowy or icy. It just this tree was dead, and it was a miracle it didn't hit my car because it came. I heard the crack, and it was like
Mhm.
bizarre. And I slowed down, and I just was down to a crawl. But if I had been going the 10 or 15 miles I was going, that sucking tree would have hit me right smack in the middle of my car.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's like, okay. So I got out and looked at my car and this and that. And then the guy, was right there. And I was, moving the things I could move. And that's when he started honking his horn and telling me to hurry up.
Yeah. We have a society that has no common sense anymore, and they don't know how to help themselves.
Right.
They can't get out of themselves' way.
Right. But, that's a human characteristic that's been around a long time. This ain't something new. You know what I mean?
Well, I know it's been around for a long time, but I mean, even like I can see in my years that people are more people have lost common sense in the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years
Right.
than they ever had.
And I think it has,
It's the internet.
right. I mean, we were able to see it more clearly.
Right.
I mean, it was there, and we weren't so integrated, so we weren't bothered by that other guy's nuttiness. We could deal with Aunt Zelda's nuttiness or your mom's nuttiness, but when you're like compressed and you have to deal with everybody else's shit, that's when it's like overcoming.
Yeah, down here we put crazy on the front porch. You know what I'm saying? Crazy's on the front porch, so everybody else is fine.
Right, everyone else is fine. I like that.
I mean, I know you're from New York, so, and I've never lived in a big city.
But when
like
we were
that.
kids,
I've always lived in the country,
Right.
and even though my town is growing by leaps and bounds,
yeah.
but still, I still live somewhat, not on top of each other,
Right,
and
right.
50-story buildings and stuff like
Right.
that.
Like Charlotte. I couldn't believe Charlotte. I lived there, in the early 70s. I had a couple buddies there, and they got me work, and I worked there, and I was there, and Charlotte was a beautiful little city. It was like a gem.
Yeah,
The
but now
Queen
they're
City.
crazy.
Oh, and it had no interstates. It had no big highways. 220, a couple other state roads went through there. But then I went away, and I came back, and my friend, his parents died, so he inherited they were in a, suburban thing just outside of Charlotte. And I went to visit him one day, and there was a 30-story building right next to his house.
Yeah.
It was like, what?
Thank goodness that isn't happening here. I live outside of Nashville, but
Right.
that is going on in Nashville. They're building those apartments
Right.
down there.
Yep.
But the problem, those big high-rise apartments. The problem is these developers and these people don't have I mean, at least in New York City, you got a bodega or a little shop or
Right.
something on the corner
Right.
that you can go and get food. But if you need to go to the grocery or Walmart or
Right.
Home Depot, you got to drive out of downtown
Right.
to another, either another county or, another city on another,
Right. You
there's
have to
cities
go a long
in
way. You can't
cities.
just stroll out
Yeah.
of your front door and go and pick up a few things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing downtown is honky tonks
Right.
and people coming here thinking they're supposed to wear cowboy hats,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
we don't do that.
Yeah.
That's
You
the
don't do that.
tourists. We make fun of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's But the other thing about Charlotte, they had so many beautiful. Like my other friend, his great grandfather was one of the at that time, like in the 50s, was a mover, shaker, lawyer, and he built really beautiful developments in the city of Charlotte,
Uh huh.
and because Charlotte had a lot of still it had parks, but it had lots of stands of trees.
Right. Right.
And this guy wanted to protect that, so he went and built houses in those stands of trees where he just took the trees out to put the house there,
Right.
right? And as he built all the roads and everything just to protect that, right?
Uh huh.
And then when that big development rush came, I remember, I went to visit my friend and he was telling me about how Charlotte is like blah blah blah. And this is after, a year or so after I visited my other friend where he had the 30-story house, in the subdivision. Anyway, he wanted me to look after his dogs because he had to go someplace, so he can stay there a week. And it's a really nice house. And I am there, and I hear this rumbling, and the dogs are going nuts. And I go outside, and there's this, gigantic bulldozer, the really, really big ones, like like the
Yeah.
size
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
house. And it was just taking all of the trees and houses, these really nice 1950s brick, beautiful houses, and the ones the developer bought, he was, moved the people out and just didn't even take any of the stuff that was, if I was going to take a building, I'd take the doors and the moldings and the this and the that because there's really good stuff. And he just bulldozed it down. And within that day, I went to sleep in a forest and I woke up and there were no trees.
Yep. And that's what they've done here. And there's this one lady in town, and right now I can't think of her name, but she um, has gone around and bought up as much land as she can,
Right?
and has done the crisscross fencing,
Uh-huh.
like that you usually see on the battlefield, or at
Right,
least
right, right,
in
right.
the
Yep,
old
yep,
timey
yep, yep. Yeah,
battlefields.
yeah, yeah. So you can't bring a bulldozer in.
Yeah, and she's put that all just to keep, you know,
Right,
just to keep our town country.
right,
Now, so where I live is, I'm on an island in the city,
right,
so I'm actually a county resident, but all around me, is the city.
right.
And I can't, they have, on the back side, on one side, you got the interstate. The back side, you have all of these warehouses. I mean, just warehouse after warehouse after warehouse. Like, we need them. Because, one exit up from here has a bunch of empty warehouses.
Right,
Why didn't they just move in up there? I don't know.
right,
But instead of building new ones, but that's what they do.
right.
And I kid you not, the deer have nowhere
To go.
to go.
Yep.
And I was out. My dog, I've a fenced in backyard, and I have a dog door, and I leave the back door open all the time. It's a storm door that's
Right.
got the dog door.
Right.
And I leave the back door open all the time so she can go in and out, because I know she can't get out the fence.
Right.
But I don't, she gets to barking a lot. I make her come in because I can't stand to hear a dog bark
Right.
while you're trying to sleep. But every night at 11 o'clock, a whole herd, and when I say a whole herd, you would think you were looking at buffalo, like in Yosemite or something. I have counted over 40 heads
Yeah.
of deer in my neighborhood.
So, I mean, that's an environmental catastrophe. What is your county and state and city saying about all that? Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. They don't care.
They don't care.
I think it's deer season now. I don't hunt, but still, I mean, in the county you can shoot guns, I guess. So if it's a deer season, you could probably shoot them.
Right. Well,
But
that's, the other side of the coin is the morons who come here, they just shoot their, the the usual suspects, as I colloquially call them in the group. They just shoot their guns and they have no idea that, they're shooting it off the deck and, a quarter mile away through the woods is somebody's house.
yeah,
And that bullet could go zooming through somebody's house into somebody's body pretty easy. So,
yeah. I'm a corner house. Like I said, there's only one way in my neighborhood and one way out, but there's two roads, and I sit on the corner. And so two houses behind me, every Sunday they have a shooting range.
right.
But there is a house behind them. But they went up and walked the back of the property
Right.
of the other people
Right.
to make sure that they weren't shooting in.
Right.
And then I shoot too. I have not at my house, but my property across the street.
Yeah.
There's a cemetery
Uh-huh.
that's right next to it. Well, the way that my property across the street is it comes from the road, and then it goes down into a dip,
Right.
and then it flattens out and then goes back down into a dip. So we actually have ours set up to shoot towards the cemetery, not
Right.
at the graves,
Right.
but the cemetery at this point is higher.
So you're shooting down and the cemetery's up. So
Yeah.
you'd really have to try and shoot into the cemetery to shoot into the cemetery.
Right. And now my daddy, he has an AR.
Right.
He has to go on down lower, like down at the pond,
Right,
and
right.
shoot because those AR bullets
They
can
have
go
more.
far.
They have more velocity. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he moves out further, but for my little 40, I have a real. But I mean, these guys that shoot every Sunday, I don't know. They must make their own ammo, but they
Yeah.
shoot all day long.
I know.
50 caliber.
Yeah.
Little. I mean, you can hear them. You can tell the difference. The
Right.
22s,
Right.
then they move up, and then move up. Then there's the 50, then they move back, and I'm like, dang.
I mean, you shoot a 50, that's like 20 cents a bullet.
Mhm.
It's like,
And they're loud.
oh boy, are they ever.
Oh.
There's a guy, so, I'm in the mountain range. So there's a guy, he's, to drive there, it's like 10 miles away. But
Mhm.
he's just on the mountain over there, so as the crow flies, he's maybe 3 or 4 miles. And he
Right.
shoots away from me, so I'm not worried about him shooting me. But I think he sold a chunk of his property because he was a hunter and he never shot on his property. Maybe on the 4th of July he might do that, but other than that, not really.
Yeah.
But because he did all the shooting hunting, he didn't have to, have a range. But he must have sold some property to somebody because they shoot and they shoot at 10 o'clock at night. Right?
No, my neighborhood would have an absolute cow if that happened.
Right.
We have like a neighborhood page, and somebody was complaining, but usually the wife of the guy who's gonna shoot, she'll put out a notice, hey, we're fixing to start shooting, I'm gonna try to get them, only to shoot for a little while, but you know how boys can be. and we all laugh, but then somebody was shooting later, like towards dark,
Right.
and it threw everybody off because nobody got a warning or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, really, you don't need a warning. We live in the county. You
Right.
know, it's perfectly
Well,
legal.
but
We can shoot.
warning is a nice, polite thing to do.
It is a nice, polite thing to do. It is. It
And
is.
being
But
and you're in the community, it's nice that everyone is it's nice that you have a community page. That's really nice.
I have to tell you, we have a few Karens that moved in, and the COVID really tore us apart.
I know.
We're scared, but yeah, even back to all of that, the buildup that's around us.
Right.
We have bobcats, we have foxes, we have
Right.
the coyotes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're having, we're just being invaded. Possums. My dog brought a possum in the other day from the fenced-in backyard, and I was like, dang. So
What's
but
sad, so you at least are getting it all. Me, because I still live in this gigantic forest, even though they're coming in this neck of the woods, which I thought they never would. What's sad is all the animals left. I mean, they have a place to go. They may
yeah,
not want to be there. It's more inconvenient for them, but there is a place they can just go over there until they take that place.
yeah.
But
My goal is, if they come in and want to annex us into
mhm,
to the city, or come in and want to build up a bunch of stuff and buy up all of our property,
mhm,
I'm going to move somewhere out, kind of out where you are.
right.
I got to have somewhere with an internet though
Right.
connection. I can't move too far out because I got to make sure I have internet for work.
Well, the thing about the internet is that, first of all, the rich people came here. I mean, there was no internet, no nothing. And within a year and a half, they put fiber everywhere. And they had the federal government pay for it. And the company that administers it only gives it to the rich people. I mean, I could get it, but it's supposed to be free because the federal government paid for it, but it would cost $60 a month.
Oh yeah,
I could get the fiber line is just right over there. You know, I could get it. But anyway, so pretty much that internet is almost built out to anywhere you want to go, right? Pretty much,
right.
right? But what's going to happen, I think, very soon, because my conductivity, my connection of all my devices is wanking out. Shit is going
Yeah,
on.
they're doing strange things. Mine does that too.
I mean, it's not like they're picking on me. Oh, we have to go after Al Bob. No, it's just I see
It's everybody.
It's everybody, and I think sometime this year, because the Russians aren't winning, they're gonna like crash the world internet. So, so you're picking on us. See how you like this, right? And
Yeah.
Elon Musk, he's got 50,000 satellites up there, and he will, and he bought Twitter, and he's going to use that as his flagship, and he's going to start Elon Musk Internet, and he's going to give everyone their own super duper. You think an iPhone is great? Oh, this Elon Musk phone is unbelievable. And
actually, there has been a lot of talk of him well, he does have his own internet, the Starlink.
Right, the Starlink. That's what I'm saying.
And there has been a lot of talk because he did buy Twitter.
Right.
Everybody's like, oh, he's ruining Twitter. All these leftist people, and the right's like, yay, we got free speech back, and I mean, we did, and that's good, and that's the way it should be. We should be able to say whatever we want to because this is America. But I don't think him buying Twitter is gonna, I think it was a good thing. I mean, but Elon does have issues. I mean, he's a transhuman person, and he thinks everybody should be chipped and be able to. I mean, so he does have. He's not this end all be all saver.
Right. He's
savior.
not Robin
I think
Hood. He's not Robin Hood.
Yeah, I mean, I think him buying Twitter was a good thing because a lot of people got voices back that because I mean,
But
Twitter was acting
but
like
there are other
China.
there are other platforms, Patreon, all those things. It wasn't like there was no place for those guys to go,
No, 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 no. That's not. If Twitter shut you down,
right?
all of those shut you down.
But not,
Patreon shut you down.
really,
Yeah, yeah. If you got booted from Twitter, you got booted from Facebook, uh, Instagram,
yeah. But what
Patreon,
about things like
YouTube.
Rubble, or there is a whole bunch of underground dark net places where people can go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because
Reddit.
people keep saying, "Oh, you should go onto one of these sites," and I said, "Fuck that." I don't. I'm. It's like no one's listening to us right now. Haven't got us. Come on, guys, give Miss Fish a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Haven't heard. So I don't care. If my life isn't defined by how many likes I get. I'm just.
Oh yeah, I don't care about likes either. I mean, I don't even have a Twitter page,
right.
so I don't.
But
I mean,
what I'm really saying is that there's going to be, since 9/11, each year has gotten weirder and weirder, and every time New Year's comes, it can't get any weirder than this. Can't get any weirder than 22. Can't get weirder than uh, 2016 when Redhead ran. It's like no. Each year is convulsively getting weirder, right? And I keep saying, the aliens are going to land anytime soon now. And
yeah, I heard you and Lana talking about that yesterday.
Have you reached
I'm
out
with
to
her.
Lana?
I think they're still here.
Yeah.
I mean, not still here. I think they're already here.
Oh, they're already here. They've been here a long time. Yeah.
I do believe that something will happen.
Yes.
My biggest thing is I've been watching. Well, I haven't been watching. I've been listening actually on C-SPAN.
Right.
To them trying to get a damn Speaker of the House.
I know, isn't that amazing?
I'm like, these same 20 people, every day, they're, Donald Trump was voted. I watched like 5 different sections yesterday, and that crazy dude from Florida says, Donald Trump. And I'm like, really? Really?
He's either totally insane, like he doesn't know what planet he's on, or he's being paid to do this. Meaning those 20 guys, the way they're doing it, because it's the first time in 125 years that this has happened. And there's a reason for that. Meaning once the Republicans win the House, the thing is you get a speaker because you can't do anything until you put some guy in. And so it's like for 125 years, it doesn't matter. Like Boehner, when Boehner got in, no one liked that guy. He's always crying.
No, yeah, I've heard that.
And so they just, okay, he checked all the boxes, good. And it doesn't matter so you get a big mallet, big fucking deal, right?
Yeah, that's what this. Okay, if any country in the world wanted to attack us right now, now is the time, because we have no Congress to declare war.
No, but we've been fighting wars without declaration since the Korean War. All those the Congress did not vote in any of those wars. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. All of those wars, no. We are a warring country. We'll go to war with anyone.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know there were some that were done, but without Congress's approval. But I think after they voted the Patriot Act in when we went to war the first time.
Right.
But either way, I mean, nothing can be done right now because these 20 idiots.
Like I said,
they're waste everybody's time.
They're being paid. Yeah, I don't know what the agenda is, but you don't act that stupid just for fun, But the other thing is, I don't know if you know this, there's an entity called COG, Continuation of Government. And since Ronald Reagan and Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld were in the Reagan administration, they changed all the laws about it. And COG now runs our government. Everything we're seeing in Congress is a sham. It's just like a little bit of theater for us, right? That's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the powers that be are totally in control. They don't need. It's like that movie. We don't need no badges. The powers that be. They don't need no stinking government. They own it.
Yeah.
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 So whatever goes down is just somebody's, soap opera. That's all of this shit is. That's all that Ronald Reagan was. That's all that any of the politicians who were voted in. It's all that the other reason. What's his name? Carrot Head got in is they wanted him there. He did every he virtually passed no real legislation, right? Whereas,
Yeah.
whereas Biden in 2 years has pushed through more shit than since Ronald Reagan. You take everybody, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Bushes, and Obama, and Biden has pushed through more legislation than all of those guys combined.
He's done that through executive order.
And more that, and also administrative order. I mean, there's a lot of things. This gigantic government. There's a lot of things you can do without having to go through Congress, right?
Yeah, I've always voted Republican, but I would call myself more of a libertarian or independent now.
Right.
Just because of the way the parties are fighting.
And what people don't understand is the Republican Party up until Jimmy Carter were the liberals.
Mm-hmm.
They were the liberals. I mean, Medicaid, Medicare, EPA, all of those things were passed by Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, really? And all the blue dog guys who were like totally nasty dudes, they were Democrats.
All the true racists.
Right. It's all Democrats. I mean,
Exactly.
if you look at the history of things, this is what it is. And and this is the problem. Through, you go back to Mesopotamia, who's ever in power constantly rewrites history.
Yeah, because people forget they've got the Democrats. Oh, we're the party of the people. Hell no, y'all are.
Hell no. Hell no.
You are the people who got Jim Crow laws.
Right.
You are the people who seceded from the Union because you wanted to keep slavery.
Not just slavery.
I know that the Civil War was not only about slavery.
No, but I'm not that ignorant. You gotta define the slavery, because it was about slavery, but not just black people, because the North had their own slaves. They were called Irish immigrants. It was the mistreatment of the general public. That's what the Civil War was about.
And the North had already gone through the industrial,
revolution,
and then the South hadn't done that yet. They were growing all the food for the North.
No. What the South was doing, they were making more money than the Northerners who had factories turning out widgets, because cotton was king. The thing that made more money in the United States between the War of 1812 and 1880 was cotton. That's like oil now, And here's a good one for you. When it was pretty obvious things were going to come to blows, the Southerners said to the New York Stock Exchange, okay, if you side with the Union, we're going to take all our money out of the stock exchange. And so New York State, during the Civil War, didn't quite say they were not, but they did everything they could not to be in the they were right in New York City, in the middle of it. All the money was there, so they did things. If you really go look at it, they were like neutral, as much as they could be neutral, right? As much as they could be neutral, they were trying to be like Switzerland, So and I mean, and that's the amazing thing about history. All that information is still there. It's just nobody really looks at it. When they do, they rewrite it. I mean, I spent 30 years in universities, and I just watched these morons go on about shit that because they were a professor, they were telling you the truth. I said, no, you wrote this stupid book and you're just pushing it so people will buy it. And no, this ain't what it is. And so I was neither liberal or conservative, or because I was a big fan of conserving things, conservation,
Yeah, yeah.
and so that's what it
I
is.
tend to lend. Like I said, I've always voted Republican, but
When did you start voting?
as soon as I could.
When
Let's see.
was that? What year was that?
Um,
When was the first year you voted in an election?
oh no, let me think. Let me think.
What president
I,
did you vote for?
I,
Reagan?
I, no, that was before me. Um, it would have been after, because I remember I cried when Barbara Bush left the White House,
Right.
because for some reason she made me think she was like the grandma of the country.
Right.
I mean, I know the Bushes have their this, that, and another, but
Right.
I always liked her.
Their dark side. Right.
Yeah. So it would have been, I guess,
About them.
after them.
Right.
Who went after them? Clinton?
Well, yeah. If it was, Herbert, it was Clinton. And the Clinton years were probably the most terrible for freedom and for America and for all of that. What the brave and blah blah blah. I mean, he was the most corrupt. What's his name? George H. He said, if I ever, I wish Bill Clinton could have been my son, because George H. was as corrupt as you get. That whole family, Prescott Bush and everybody. I mean, their lineage is like unfrigging believable.
Yeah.
But Clinton did more to damn it. Why all the black people are in jail? Bill Clinton. Why we had to crash in '08, he got rid of Glass-Steagall? Bill Clinton. Why we had the cutting down all the frickin' trees in the world? Bill Clinton.
Why all the factories moved overseas?
Bill Clinton. Right. I mean, you just go on and on and on.
I can't remember who ran against him, but I know I voted for that other person.
Right. It was really sick fuck shit. And so,
yeah.
And it was obvious that it was a scam. I mean, he is more, he's more moneyed than anybody else. So he's neither Democrat, Republican. He's like Venusian. He's like whatever entity that you could imagine is the most doing the most harm to us. That's the political entity. And I call it the hidden hand. I mean, these guys, they are not in plain sight, and they are not the people they are not Elon Musk. They're not.
No, they're the people who Elon Musk borrowed the money for.
No, not even borrowed. Works for. He does what they tell him to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where he got the money to buy.
Right. Right. And that guy who had the Lolita Express, Jeffy, whatever his name is, who, allegedly committed suicide in that jail in New York, right?
Epstein.
That guy went from, someone of your economic background to being a billionaire in less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Meaning, no. Yes, he went and worked at this bank for about 6 months, and then he becomes a trader, and then he becomes a billionaire. No. They just said, this guy's a sleazeball. He'll do what we want him to do. And I bet you dollars to donuts, they either just slipped in the needle to make him look like he was dead, or they stuck somebody in his place that looked like him.
Yeah, the Epstein stuff.
Right.
I mean, you still can't even get on his private island.
Mm-hmm.
So something ain't right about all that.
Oh,
cameras,
right.
The guards fell asleep.
Right.
Cameras weren't working. There's.
And that
I can understand. Okay, there's a glitch.
Right.
I mean, I've worked with security.
Right.
before, or corrections.
Right.
Not necessarily corrections and on
But you work
first-hand
with you
basis.
you work on systems that are the same systems that are in.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I know that there could be human error as
Right.
far as people falling
Right.
asleep,
Right. Right.
but both of
Right.
the ones on that wing fell asleep,
Right.
and the cameras went out.
And I'll tell you something. That jail is not like any other jail. It's right next to the Supreme Court building, right next to the City Hall, and it was built. I was a union electrician. I worked on it. It is like the Taj Mahal of jails in that it only houses high value characters, not your average guy, right?
And you know who else will go there? That Sam. I think they'll do.
The guy with the electronic money guy.
Yeah. He'll go there, and the same thing's going to happen to him.
Right. But up until Epstein, there had net because their protocols are so. I mean, it's just not those two guys. They have a total protocol on everything.
Yeah.
And because
that's what I'm saying. There
in
were
the
so
30
many
years
system
that
failures.
yes, in the 30 years that they had like 500,000 worse guys than Epstein go through that place, no one committed suicide. There was never a hiccup, not a single one. For 30 years, 500,000 guys, and then Epstein, no.
Yeah.
And then Howard's like totally forgot about it, and his partner, that girl, she's disappeared basically. She went to court for about a week and said a few things, and then nothing else was said.
Yeah.
It's like back in the day when they were investigating Iran-Contra, right? And they were bringing it all out. And just when they were starting to get into the interesting stuff, the guy from Hawaii, Ananaway, who was on the committee, who's just a Democrat, who really is, he does, he's like almost invisible. He's just there to get what Hawaii needs. He stands up and says, we cannot go any further with this hearing. We're getting into areas, right? And they were getting into the areas where they were showing that our government is no longer our government. They were getting into places that it's not Democrats, not Republicans. Those guys are just the scam. It's not anybody that you see. They were getting into the stuff that no one sees, and it's like corporate. It's not. It's not government. It's corporate.
Yeah.
And that kind of. And he just closed. He I mean, they were wondering why. People were wondering why this guy was put in charge of this hearing, and he didn't. All he did is hit it. Okay, we're going to talk now. Whatever, Larry, you take over. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. And he walks in just when they're about to start to talk about something interesting. And I was watching on C-SPAN, going, okay, let's see what they really go about. They're going to talk about COG. They're going to talk about this. They're going to talk about that. And he just strolls in, takes over the sit. He picks up the hammer. We're closing down this hearing, period. Not to come back. We're not just, we'll come back tomorrow. This is the end. See you.
Yeah,
bye.
We're done. Kind of like they do things at over there in Rome. What's it called?
The Vatican.
Yeah.
The Vatican's more scary than any government you could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. At least America has somewhat of a belief that
there's a structure where if, like a guy like me, who spent his whole life just stumbling through this stuff, like some little pixie girl, like Alice in Wonderland, and seeing stuff, going, and then getting at a place where, okay, I'm really old, I've been going to the doctors a lot, and they're like, gonna flip a coin. Are you gonna die, or you're just gonna keep living? I mean, all the tests and stuff. Boy, this looks bad, but this other looks good. I don't understand how you're alive. So I'm gonna go get some other procedure, right? And the next thing is they're gonna cut me open and look inside. I said, fucking no. You can put me under scans. You can, have ultrasounds, but you're not touching me with a blade. Period. Right?
Yeah.
I'd rather die. I feel good. I don't, until I'm really, oh my God, the pain. No. And thank you, God, for not, keeping me this way. I'm always at your beck and call, so that's why this is working. Anyway, long story short, is I'm at a place where I don't care. Whether I'm
Yeah.
dead or alive, every day is like a whole lifetime to me, and I enjoy every ounce of it. I have no money. I kind of say, hey, I remind people like right now, hey kids, it's throw some on my PayPal. That's due to wake 42 at Gmail, due to wake 42. Or get a hold of me. Let's talk. So I don't care. And that's the beauty of America. There's millions of people like me, not just with an opinion, who are like putting it out there and not caring that they get any likes, or not caring that they're part of some big thing, or not care about anything except doing the best they can, being nice to people, and trying to tell a story that
This is
they were part of.
okay. So this, I hear you, and I understand what you're saying. But back to the Vatican
Oh,
and
yes.
and the American.
Right, right,
Okay, so there are so many people that are putting the truth out, right? Like you say, or
right,
what you've seen,
right, right.
and how things go. However, I think they give us a little bit more leeway here,
Right.
and even in London's the same way.
Right,
They
and
give us
in
more,
places that pretend they're a democracy,
right,
because it's easier
because
to
they are scared
right,
that they'll have another French Revolution on
right.
their
Oh yeah,
hands.
and that's why they let people let off a little steam here and there,
Yes,
right?
but over at the Vatican, you just disappear. They don't
Yes.
let you let off
Oh.
steam.
I
At
mean,
the Vatican, you gone.
I had my godfather was a cardinal. He was just three hats below being a pope. So,
Hmm.
and my
Have they
mom,
elected a new pope yet?
no, 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 we have one. The guy who died retired.
Oh, I thought he was the acting pope. I thought
No,
he
no,
was
no, no,
the
no, no,
pope.
no. They don't have an acting pope. No, the guy, the Nazi guy, he retired because it was
Oh, okay, okay. I didn't listen to it that far. I thought he was the current
no,
pope.
no. He was retired,
Oh, okay,
and why
okay.
they're making a big deal out of it? He's the first pope who's retired in about 1,600 years.
He just said screw it.
Right. Well, he was, basically what happened. It was like closing in on him. It was almost
Hmm.
like LBJ, meaning everything was closing in on LBJ because LBJ had to be one of the most corrupt sacks of shit there ever was, right? And he had people killed. He actually killed people because, even though he had Lady Bird, he screwed around a lot, and he liked the sleazy girls, and
Hmm.
he murdered his hands around their neck, squeezing the life out of them. Back in the day, that was part of his pleasuring himself, right?
Yeah.
He's that kind of sick kind of guy. And so those things were starting to close in on him. And he knew he wasn't going to be vice president second time around with Jack. So he was part of the crew that got rid of Jack. And
Yeah.
he did it because he knew that, okay, I'll have 2 years of Jack's thing, or a year of Jack's thing, then I'll easily get elected, and then I'll retire. And I'll get all my eggs in a row. So because they were coming at him, they were going to put him in jail. They're going to do a Spiro Agnew on him,
Yeah.
before Spiro Agnew. And so and Spiro was not a bad guy, where LBJ was a bad guy. You know, Spiro was just an easy. Why he was there is that everyone knew that he could be thrown under the bus. You know, so
Yeah.
so but in the Vatican, whoa. And there's three places on this world that control the world. There is Vatican City. Did you know Vatican City has a seat in the UN like another country would have? The
Y-
UN considers the
y-
Vatican a state.
I didn't know that, but I watched a documentary about a girl that went missing
Uh-huh.
inside the Vatican. She they lived in the I think it's just like what, a 2 mile square radius
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something like
Vatican
that.
City. Yep. The big
And then
and
they
it
lock the
goes
gates
down
at night.
underground more than it's above ground. That's the other
Yeah,
weird thing.
but they lock the gates at night.
Right.
So if you're not in by a certain time, well, you're
right.
just stuck outside.
Yep,
And you can't
exactly.
go home.
Yep.
But that's how I learned that. I was watching a documentary about that.
So the Vatican City is one. Then there's a place called the City of London. In the middle of the city is another, like maybe half-mile square. That's an entity to itself. It's not
Mhm.
part of England, and that's where they do really squirrely money things. So the
Right.
Vatican owns everyone's soul. The City of London owns everyone's money, and the District of Columbia is another separate entity. It's not why they don't have their own congressmen or politicians that take care of them, because they're a separate country.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and the thing
the
about
official
that,
story is they didn't want the government to be influenced by any one person.
right,
So they made it an independent place for government.
right. But the
And
real
that's why
deal
they
is,
don't.
and that's why. But you look at how DC is laid out.
Yeah.
It's laid out as a satanic Ouija board.
Yeah.
You know?
I have seen that over. I looked that up too.
Like, these guys smoking something really strong, and the most powerful point of it is right where they put the Pentagon. And what is the geometric shape of the Pentagon but the devil's star, And so the
Yeah.
Pentagon's in charge of death. They used to call it the War Department, which was, at least they were being straight up about it. Now they call it the Defense Department. No, there's nothing about the Defense Department, right?
Yeah,
But all of this stuff, the more it's getting more and more self-evident to everybody, right? And if you go outside the country, man, back in the day when I traveled the world, and that was like 60s, 70s, 80s, a little bit in the 90s, but I stopped at 92. Anyway, everyone outside of America, they know what the fuck's going on. Because it's
and we're
affecting
dumb.
them.
We us Americans are dumb because they
we've been dumbed down. They put us in a
we've been
position
dumbed down, and
they can
they
use
complain
us.
about the stupidest shit.
Right.
And then, but let you go complain over
something important.
Yeah. Well, anything. I mean,
why don't we say something about the Federal Reserve? This is a private corporation owned by stockholders, and Federal Reserve is as much of the federal government as Federal Express.
Yeah.
Well,
and the vaccine for the COVID.
Right.
I had to get them for my job because
right. I had to get them because I couldn't get any health care. They said, if you don't get these, we're taking you off. You won't get any of your other things. We won't look at you. If you get hurt, you'll just die. So I said, fuck it, I'll take it.
Well, and they are keeping people out of our country. Yeah, they're letting them flood across the border down south.
Right.
Because that famous tennis player that can't come because he won't get the vax.
Right.
Somebody said, just go down to the southern border and walk across. They're not going to check your status. And it's true because you can walk back and forth. But like we have a bunch of people coming from our Ireland offices over. And of course they have to do the
passport
COVID testing and stuff like that. But then, like, one of the guys that's from Ireland, he wanted to go home from Christmas, go back to Ireland for Christmas, but he couldn't get his visa status right. Not his U.S. visa, his Irish visa.
Right.
And he didn't give up his Irish citizenship.
Right, he's got that. I know
Uh,
it's totally
but he
fucked
couldn't
up.
get a visa to go back.
Right. That's the real fucked up is that all of the stuff that people complain about is just things that really don't really like just what you explained. That's
Hmm.
just the surface, right?
Yeah.
What's really
Well,
the deep dive stuff that would be, the powers that be would get upset. It's not even covered, or all of the things that you just said are just put out there to be a smokescreen, so people talk about that
yeah.
rather
Well,
than
I'm
the shit
telling you
that's really
this
going down.
the COVID the the COVID vaccine.
Right,
Um, the reason why I refuse to get another one,
right,
I don't care if there's a new variant or whatever, but my nephew who just turned 22
right.
has Bell palsy now. Um,
He didn't
and
before he got the shot.
no,
Right,
and he got the shot. He got both shots because his grandmother was super scared
right,
and wouldn't let him come over
right,
until he got vaccinated.
right,
And so he went and he got vaccinated so he could go see his grandma. And then he moved to Colorado. And he called me one morning and he's like, I'm at the emergency room. I think I've had a stroke. He was all distraught.
right,
He
right,
didn't, because he woke up with his face paralysis.
right,
He
right,
couldn't shut his eye or whatever.
right,
Well, he went to the doctor out there because, since they made marijuana legal there, you get free health care.
right.
Because he went to get his Colorado driver's license, and they're like, "Do you have insurance?" And he's like, "No, I just moved here." And they're like, "Okay," and they signed him up for Medicaid
Well,
or
that's not
whatever they
bad.
call it out
That's not a
there.
bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
Maybe we should just legalize that shit everywhere and let
No,
everybody
no
have health
shit. Everyone,
insurance.
that's exactly right. Everyone should
You
have.
know, I mean,
If all the rest of the developed countries can have health care for their people, and it makes more sense because at the end of the line, it saves money. It keeps the workers in the factory. That's why Germany, France, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. It makes good business sense.
well, I have reservations about that because they pay most of their money
And
back into the
yeah,
government to
yeah,
get
yeah.
their
No,
free health
yeah,
care.
right, right.
But
I mean, not just for healthcare.
and
Everyone
like
gets free.
Switzerland,
Everyone gets free healthcare. Everyone gets um, free education as far as you want to go or can go. Everyone gets lives in a society where the infrastructure kind of works. You go to Europe, their trains actually do run. Everything is kind of clean. The garbage does get picked up, meaning it's not as off the wall as America is because we're
yeah,
free to
yeah.
do
The only
nothing.
thing I don't like about, like, say, Switzerland,
Right.
I have a friend whose nephew lives there,
Hmm.
and it it doesn't matter what your profession is. If you're a plumber, all plumbers make the same.
Right.
Whether you're a shitty plumber or an excellent plumber, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna make the
Except
same
I
money.
lived in those countries being an electrician, right? So
Yeah.
the bottom line to all of that is, yes, this is all very true, right?
Mhm.
It works relatively well for everyone up to about 80%. There's that 20% there that people are goofballs and take advantage of it. Now
Right.
they get paid the same as that other 80% who are doing a good job, but because they're goofballs and they really, aren't doing it, no one hires them.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they're not making the same
that's a
money
good
as they're
thing.
not making the exact same money that other 80% is doing. And on the
Yeah.
other side of the coin is so when your economy is kind of controlled in that way, because these are all socialist Democrats. So they're kind of socialist, right? So that's how
Yeah.
they got everyone to get, pretty much a level field on living. So I was in those countries. I had skill sets and I would, once people, I lived in this little town, and once they realized I was an electrician, people would come over, hey, how can you help me with this? And I would go over and help them with that. And they would give me a chicken, or they give me a few fin, or they give me this, or give me, we trade or do that. And that's kind of how that other 30% of the economy of those countries work. Everyone kind of
Yeah.
does. And Some
the
countries
barter.
more, yeah, some countries more than others. The northern ones, like Sweden, Finland, and Norway, that's kind of built into their DNA. And then the southern ones, like Spain, Greece, and Italy, their whole thing is that too, but more in a party kind of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
They like the party.
they like to party. Well, it's warmer, when it's cold.
Yeah,
I mean, the Swedes, they party, but only for about 2.5 months because then
yeah, because it's cold the rest of the time.
and it's dark. It was
Yeah,
it was like I'm living there and it's summer and it's nice and we're all eating prawn on the Barbie, and then around October 11th, it went from being summer to winter, like someone hit the switch, because I mean it was really ridiculously how within a 48-hour period it just got darker, and then it got darker and darker with every week. So there was never sunrise, and there was never, there was like a maybe 3-hour period from 11 till about 2 where it was gray,
yeah. Kind of like it is in Alaska, but a little bit darker.
but and not as green.
Yeah,
It's more
and not as
gray.
green.
It's more gray.
Yeah.
Did you ever make it
Um,
up to Alaska?
I have not. I have not been. I have been to various states. I've been to all of the southern
Right,
states, with the exception of Louisiana. That is on my next trip.
right.
If I ever decide to take vacation or have money to do so. Um, but and I'd like to go out to Montana and Wyoming.
You'd like that.
But those are I've been to almost all of the 48 states,
You know,
with
this,
the exception of Louisiana and Arizona and kind of that little middle part, Wyoming, Montana.
yeah, yeah. This coming 4th of July, the Rainbow Gathering is going to be kind of in our neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, either Tennessee or West Virginia or somewhere, within.
Oh, I can't do that West Virginia stuff.
No.
Watch Wrong Turn one too many times. I'm so scared of them West Virginia
Well, no.
folks.
But see, the thing is, you need a crew. So if this, I'm trying to get people like from the show and from all around who I know who've never been to a Rainbow Gathering, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like the dude in that. There was a period of 10, 15 years where I knew all the people who started it back in the 60s and 70s. Like, oh,
Mhm.
wow, you got to be part of this, got to be part of it. And I finally started doing it. And then I became like the holy roller boy of the Rainbow Gathering. But I was basically being a sociologist. I was just studying this crew. And
Right.
why you would like this, just because of what you just said about where you've been and visited, it's like going to America that's in a 200-acre spot, meaning the gatherings have been in every state all around and all around the world. And so people come from all those things. So the people from every state, lots of other countries like the UN, and it's just a lot of fun, even though it's totally changed from what it was when I first started doing, where it was more a spiritual kind of thing. And because we would just walk into the woods, we didn't,
Uh-huh.
so we could only bring into the gathering what we could carry on our backs, which was a great
Right.
thing because it kept the crowd down, and it kept our footprint on the land way, way, way. Now it's a total drive-in. Everyone's got buses and RVs, and and it's a bit off the hook. But um, you should try, you and your sweetie, and you can bring your dogs. Everyone's got dogs,
Yeah,
and,
I have dogs.
so and it's only for a few days, but it would be like going to another planet. And when you go to another planet, you need a good guide. Well, I mean, there's still people at these gatherings. If I walk on site, ow, where have you been? There I
Yeah.
still have that cachet because people are. You're gonna go to the. You better come again. We want to see you. And they put on a gathering, a national gathering, that was 70 miles from me. And they
Oh yeah.
and the lady who was the focalizer of it said, "We knew you weren't going to come unless it was less than 100 miles." So we, they made me the focalizer, and I was looking where you live, and here's a national forest and a place we could do it in. So she basically came and got me. You're coming to this, So
Yeah.
you would love it, and because it's just for about 4 or 5 days, and you can drive. You drive, visit me. We do it as a train of people because there's some people from Chicago who are going to come, and there's some other people from up north who are going to come and kind of get here maybe a couple days before we all go, and we drive as a crew, and then everyone knows exactly. They can feel safe. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah.
it would be like you going to Ireland without having to go to Ireland.
Yeah. Well, I go to Ireland every day without having to go there.
Okay. Well,
I actually just got off the phone right. I literally just hung up with Ireland when you called.
okay. So
but
where was your Irish friend? Where are they located? What city or town or county or where? What neck of the woods?
Well, I know they're very strong about their counties.
Oh yeah, it's like separate countries.
Yeah, they'll fight over a county. The folks I were talking to were in Dundalk.
Oh
that
yeah,
was the city.
Dundalk,
but I don't
yes.
know what their county
Yes.
is.
Yeah, that's kind of near Skibbereen. It's like on the not quite the west coast, but it's definitely not the east coast.
Right. And then some are from the county, Cork.
Cork, yeah,
that's the lower part.
Yep.
And I listen to them make fun of each other.
Yes. You go to a pub, they're always, like how they're like Polish jokes and things like in America, where you disparage somebody. In Ireland, everyone disparages not only counties, but cities too. Limerick, the Limerick people, or the Donegal people, or the this people, or the Dublin people, or
the Limerick. We got some from Limerick too.
Yeah, so they
be dogging out some of the other folks.
Yes, and it's after 88. 88 is when they joined the EU. And there's like a timeline because nothing is like it was. Like Dublin, right? Dublin is a beautiful European city. It's like one of the capital cities of England's empire. So when they were building that out in the 1600s, it's a really beautiful kind of European city, right? And then it became the center of the dysfunction of that country for 100 and something years. And then in 22, they had the revolution, and that's when Ireland became a separate country. And so, and that's when England said, fine, we're going to take all our money and take it up to Northern Ireland and fuck you and, be poor. And so they.
Yeah, but they're really actually trying to do a united.
Oh, well, and they already was with the Easter Agreement that, the American congressman put together about 30 years ago. It is one country, right? And they really want to get the England out.
They really want.
Well, the demographics has changed because that used to be a Protestant English town, right? And Belfast. And over the last 30 years, all those English folk, they don't have babies. They've all died. So the demographics has totally changed. So I would say in less than 5 years, if something strange doesn't really happen, they will just ease because they already have. They've already taken, when Brexit happened, they did certain things that changed it so it can just ease into being Ireland, right? Before you know it, you blink, and all of that stuff that had been English will be gone because England has put it by getting out of Brexit. It's really screwed itself.
Yeah.
I mean, not for the really rich English people, but for the poor and working class English people.
Yeah, because I was talking to some, I work with people all over the world,
right?
From all over the world, and that live in other countries, and we do a lot of talking. But yeah, England's having a lot of
problems.
A lot of problems, especially in London. Some places, Sharia law is the law.
Yeah, but I mean, again,
and the regular police can't get in there.
Well, again, you can talk all you want about all of that, but
And
these
but
cities have a culture unto themselves, and
yes,
different civilizations have come and gone and have done the same thing, but it
right, right.
always is London,
Yeah,
you know.
but well, I mean, and that started, years back
Yeah,
when
way
they were
before
still
nine
in the
eleven, way before 9/11.
yeah, yeah. But now they're having problems getting garbage collected
Oh yeah,
or
right.
rubbish,
Yes.
as they would
Yeah,
call it.
yeah, yeah.
They can't get their rubbish picked up.
Right.
Rubbish is piled up sky high.
But that's always
Their
I
supply
lived in London
chains,
in the
they can't even afford their heat
in
and
right in the
oil.
70s. I don't know what it is about the English mentality, but they were like Rome. They owned everything, but their own people in their country, they treated them like, I mean, all you got to do is read Dickens, the Christmas Carol. I read it
Yeah.
over and over and over again, all of the Advent month, and I did it. I read little bits of it on the show, and it is that it's that's like I said, London is no matter who's there, what's going on, it's this poverty-stricken kind of place amongst amazing wealth, right? It's like,
Mhm.
and so what you're defining is something that's been going on since like, you know, 16th century. It's like,
Yeah, but but to tie it back to what you said, um, that they screwed themselves
oh,
when they exit.
well,
I mean, not exit,
they
Brexit.
screwed the poor people. That's who they screwed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Working
you know,
class. The working class is the guys who got screwed, right?
right, right. So that and now that they've been out, what,
Two,
um,
3 years, maybe.
yeah, 2 or 3 years is what I was thinking too. That it has even all the people who
Voted for it,
voted for it wish they hadn't voted for it.
right? Not only that,
So
they're
because
realizing they're screwed. They were lied to,
mhm,
because
mhm,
you look at, like, so the Conservative Party that is like losing its mind right now. It's like Republican Party in America. It's like losing its
mhm.
mind. They put this girl in to be the prime minister, and once she was going to cut everything she could and give it all to the rich and say, well, if we give all this money to the rich, they'll expand corporations, the trickle down theory, which definitely never works.
That's why she lasted all of what, a
Three
week?
3 weeks.
Mm.
Yep. And this guy isn't doing any better, right? He's just not as stupid as she was, right? He's not doing
Here,
he's
they're part of the Tory party.
right.
I don't understand.
Well, the
They have
Tories are
so
the
many different
Republicans.
parties over there, but
The
that's the
Tory is
Tory.
like the neocons in the Republican Party, who want to kill everything and just have everything for themselves. That's the Tory Party, and
Mhm.
it's been that
Like them
way.
20 stupid ones we got right now.
Exactly. That you want a definition of the Tory Party? Those morons are it.
Yep.
You can. Oh, I don't understand the English. You want to know the Tory Party? Those 20 morons. So that's the interesting thing, is that no matter how much shit changes, it stays the same. And the
Yeah.
only thing that's going to change this is, so I think in our little conversation here, I was saying that this guy sat on my deck and he told me all the history of this neighborhood. And then I asked him what would be the thing needed to change all the things he was going on about. And and I didn't even tell him what to say. I just asked him the question, what is lacking and what is needed? And he said, in a word, empathy. Now, here's a guy that somebody like Hillary Clinton would call him a basket of deplorables. He's a Ku Klux Klan. It's like, Obama said, all they do is love their guns and their religion. No, this guy was right on. He didn't say, more Baptist, blah, blah, blah. No, he said empathy. And that's all that is needed to fix everything that we got in front of us.
That's true.
If everyone could see, like, so, yes, the tweakers that are in my hippie van there, I let them do that because I had empathy. I mean, they're annoying. They're really, I mean, they are burning wet wood, so the only thing that's coming out of the chimney is creosote, and every so often it blows over my way, and then I choke, but it's not not like gonna kill me. It does, they've been over there for now a month, and I've been really bothered by it twice. So that's not enough to really get. It's just showing me, they can't. I said, all you got to do is put the wood under the bus, cover it up. Don't burn it when it's wet. Well, it's not, doesn't have water on it. No, that's doesn't mean it's not wet. You got to kind of dry it out a bit. And they can't do
Mhm.
that. They just pick it off the ground and break it up and, you know, burn it in the little thing. Now, the real bad thing is if, let's say, the wind was if the humidity was a certain thing, that smoke, that creosote wouldn't go out the chimney. It would fill the bus up with creosote and they would die.
Oh, then you get a creosote log and go in there.
So, and I told them because one day I went over there because they were like, I'd make something and instead of saving it and eating it the next day, I brought it over to them because I had no food whatsoever. And so I went over there and the smoke was coming out of, well, yeah, it was really cold, but the smoke was coming out of every crack that was in that place. I went in there, it was like, I said, guys, what are you nuts? Open the windows. And they're all coughing, but they got to have their cigarettes, so they're smoking 24/7. I came in one afternoon. It's, you have to take us to the store. We need cigarettes. And I said, no, first of all, look at my car. It's full of stuff. No one's going in that car. Well, take it out and throw it on it. It's raining. I mean, that's the kind of all they could think because they're addicted personalities. They have been so torched as human beings. They're not human beings anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. But I would say 20% of our population is in that rank. They're the ones who doing the crazy shit, murdering this, and they're not doing it because of Allah told them that or Black Lives Matter. They are just sick fucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they didn't choose to be sick fucks. They were pushed into that. And they're not of any economic, racial, social color group.
No, it gets everybody.
It gets everybody. And that's the beauty of this little neck of the woods, the 200 square miles I'm in. It's pretty much got every kind of group you could think of, from Johnson City to Kingsport to out in the hollers. And it's affecting every one of those groups in lots of different ways. But the sick fuck group is in every group.
Yeah, we were talking, my coworker and I, we were talking the other day. We were talking about our family.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather, he asked me about my grandparents, and I'm like, I only knew my grandmother on my father's side and my father on, my mother's side because the others had died. And I said, but from what I understand from my grandmother, he was a functioning drunk.
Right.
And I mean, he worked at DuPont until, actually he died on the weekend, but he was still working at DuPont. But he was a functioning drunk.
Right.
And my coworker said his daddy was the same way.
Yeah.
Stayed drunk all the time.
Right.
But they had that mentality of we're gonna get drunk, we're gonna drink, we're gonna do our alcohol, but we still have to take care of our family.
Yep.
But now, somewhere in the last two generations, that taking care of your family part has gone away, and it's just taking care of your addiction.
Right. Yep. Because they moved from alcohol and tobacco and sugar and white flour into fentanyl and all of those kind of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Which you can my family self-medicated, and they were high functioning alcoholics and tobaccoholics and all of that.
Yeah, I mean that's what like my papa. I mean he died when I was 3 months old, so I don't know. But I mean he had a very important. I mean, he was
He had a good
in
job.
1977. He
Right.
was making $22 an hour in
Yeah, right.
1977.
Right, right.
So he was making good money for
Yeah,
1977. So he had a
1977,
good
that's
job.
like $140 an hour today.
Yeah. So he had a very
As my mother would say, a
stressful.
very important job.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, and he was drunk the entire
Right,
time.
he was a high functioning junk.
So I just,
And that's
mm,
part of the motif of Europeans, especially because
yeah, because
back in
them
the
jokers
Dark
drink
Ages,
all the time.
because their water was poison. And
Yeah.
so the only thing they could drink was mead or booze. Anything, they had to drink anything that was distilled, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The mead also had some
Hallucinogen,
nutritional.
yes, medicinal qualities and also hallucinogenic qualities, you
Oh,
know?
I'm sure it did. But yeah, it had nutritional
Right,
too
right.
because of how it was made. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
when people think of mead, they think of beer, but
It's
mead
no,
is
no.
not beer.
Mead was more like bread. It was that
Yeah,
thick. You
yeah, yeah.
right, right.
So I don't know. All, I think today the closest thing that I would think would be mead would be more like the dark German
Yeah,
beers
but
or
there's still
the
beers.
Guinness.
It's
Yeah,
totally
they're
different.
still beer,
They're
but
still beer,
they're
right?
but the thickness of them.
Yeah, but it's not
Just
even
think of
close.
that
It's a
times
different.
two or three to make it even thicker.
But it's not the thickness. It's the stuff that was in it that really,
Right? Yeah,
like you
yeah.
said. But the other interesting thing wasn't just booze, mead, wine, and beer. Pretty much everyone drank um, cider,
Mhm.
which was alcoholic too, you know? So it's kind of what it was. So so we're at a really interesting place. We in the next 20 years can decide. We are the deciders. That's one of my major things to tell everyone. You can decide what you want to do with your life. You just don't have to follow this path that you were put on, you know?
No,
So
no. There are a lot of people who waste their time
yes,
trying to figure out this or want this, and
right.
it's just not attainable.
Not only is it
Um,
attainable, it's been put in front of them like, here, have this, instead of why don't you go out in the woods and think about what you really want and breathe deep and let this stuff come to you from you, not from the TV or your cell phone or your computer or whatever. Um,
I get a lot of my inspiration, or I credit a lot to the way I think from my grandmother,
uh-huh,
I mean, she raised me,
right,
um, and she was uh, born in 1929, so she can remember, World War II
right,
because they did maneuvers on her grandparents' farm.
right,
And then, Mammy, which was her grandmother, fed all the troops that were doing maneuvers
right,
before they went overseas. But my grandfather, I told you, that was the drunk.
right,
He was on up in there's a town called Red Bowling Springs. It's a ways from here,
uh-huh,
but it's still on up in the country. I
right,
mean, like, he could kill rabbits with rocks.
right,
He could kill more rabbits with rocks than he could with guys with guns.
right,
But anyway, they never bought anything
right.
unless they had the money to pay for it.
Right, that's me.
And then
I don't buy anything unless I got the money to buy it.
but when we went to the store every week,
Uh-huh.
you when she worked, it was every Friday night on the way home
Right,
because uh, our town didn't have. We had one grocery store, but she wanted a bigger selection, so she'd stop at the bigger town before we got here,
right,
and then get groceries for for my sister and I to eat,
Right.
stuff that we didn't have through the week
Right.
until
Special
I
thing.
moved in with
Right.
her.
Right.
But anyway, but every week she bought flour,
Yep.
a 5 pound flour, 5 pound sugar,
Right.
5 pound cornbread.
Yep.
Every week. I don't know. These were this not that was bought, and I think that had a lot to do with how in more during the depression time, and they
Right.
gave out stamps and
Right.
stuff
Yep. Yep.
that you could only buy so much. So for her, that was a fear.
Right. But
So
it's
she
also
always
a
bought it.
tradition. A tradition meaning all those guys had lotters. I mean,
Mhm.
I have one. You know, I've been
Yeah, I
hanging
did
out with the
too.
grandmas here enough, and I had my grand. I was like you. I was brought up. I am what I am basically because of my grandma. But she always had her larder, and even living in a city where shit was everywhere you could get. But she
Yeah,
had certain things that she always had, so she could always do what she wanted. So she
yeah.
wouldn't,
Look
if
up
she didn't want to
something.
go down 2 sets of stairs to the store, she could just
Yeah.
do what she wanted, right? So,
Yeah, and well, and to to her credit, and again, my grandfather died, so she was alone. She never remarried or whatever.
right,
And then when I was 12, I came to live with her,
right,
and she went to work, did all she worked all that good stuff,
yep,
but she instilled in. I mean, I can count back change. I can't tell you how many people that are my age
can't
or
do it,
even younger that
right,
can't count back change.
right,
Like I can literally count it back to you. Like it's 4:26,
right.
and I can do it in my head
You can do
without
it
a
in your head, yes,
calculator.
right,
And I'll be like, change makes five, five
right.
is 10, 10 is 20. Have
Honey
a
bun,
nice day.
honey bun,
That's how I learned.
hold on a second. I have to jump off the show here because my battery's just about to die.
Okay,
And then if it dies, the show doesn't get
go
put up.
up.
Yeah, so hold on a
Bye,
second.
everybody.
Bye. See, I'll be right back to you here. So, okay, gang,
Okay.
I'll talk to you later. I'm leaving now. Remember, put some in that old PayPal, and I'll catch you later. I'll talk to you about 2 hours or so.